Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know, to be honest. Thanks for cutting my hair, by the way. I do appreciate it. You actually did an alright job. I was surprised. Yeah, no, you did alright. What? What do you mean? What do you mean it's a good thing I can't see the back? What's, what's wrong with the back? Word to your mother, my name's Steve, this channel is Fragdicted. Thanks for tuning in. As always, I do really appreciate it. Today I'm talking about a fragrance that, for whatever reason, when I first tried it quite a few weeks ago now, probably a couple of months ago, I sort of wrote it off. Just didn't really do it for me. And I revisited it recently and I quite liked it. I'm talking about Zaharoff's Signature Pour Homme. So I've got a sample of Signature Pour Homme. It's really hard to get hold of in the UK unless you got a free bottle basically as a reviewer. I think it can ship to the UK, but the shipping's really expensive. So it's kind of a bit of a sticking point, I think, at the minute. But I have got a sample which was kindly donated by my good friend Tony at the channel Fragdicted. So go over and check his out. I'll link his review. I think he's done a full review of this on his channel, so I'll link that below. Anyway, so Tony gave me this sample and I first smelt it and I thought it was nice, but it wasn't really kind of my type of fragrance. It wasn't really for me. It felt like a sort of old school frag, but with a modern twist. But I recently wore it again and I've changed my mind a little bit. It's actually a modern frag with an old school twist. Before I tell you what I get from this fragrance, I'm going to read the notes to you from my phone. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because I don't have a shiny bottle to overlay this image with, and there's far too many notes to remember from my fragile little brain. There's a lot of notes going on there. It's a really complex fragrance and the notes are from all over the world. And I think that's kind of George's intention when he kind of did this. So at the top there's fresh cardamom, not just cardamom, it's fresh cardamom, just so you know. Lavender, there's black pepper, there's juicy pear, which is the third take I've had because every time I read juicy pear I just imagine a nice juicy pear. Blue cypress. In the mids there's ginger roots, there's blonde cedar, there's temple oud, Florentine iris, there's pimento leaves and there's fir balsam. And then in the base there's some creamy sandalwood, there's gold patchouli, black amber, myrrh and frankincense. So as I said before, this is a very complex fragrance. There's a lot going on. So it's definitely not linear. It does develop and change and certainly go through different phases. And I like the fragrances at different amounts and depending on the phase that I'm in. So at the top in the opening, I remember when I first smelt this fragrance like a couple of months ago, I kind of, as I said earlier, I kind of wrote it off as it just felt a little bit kind of old school because it's certainly got an element of talky balls about it. If you're a regular viewer, you'll know what I mean when I say that. It's kind of got this sort of powderiness to it. But then when I smelt it again more recently, I ended up wearing it again for a couple of days because it was better than I remember. So the opening, there is a lot going on to it, so it probably takes a little bit of time to fully appreciate it. So I've kind of sprayed it on the arm just before the video. It opens up and it certainly does have some sort of powderiness to it, presumably from the lavender, and I guess that's kind of what I got when I first sprayed it a couple of months ago, and that's maybe what sort of put me off and I wrote it off a bit too quickly because there certainly is more going on. I get the pepper out at the top as well. There's certainly some spice that kind of gives it a bit of a kick, but there is a kind of sweet warmth to it as well. Like when I sprayed it before, I remember it being powdery, and then when I sprayed it more recently, I remember spraying it and going, that's kind of sort of warmer and sweeter than I remember. I assume that kind of warmth is coming from the cardamom, and it's just giving it that sort of extra little kind of something in the top. And the top is certainly, it's not a big kind of booming projector, this fragrance, but it's certainly a nice, I say, quite complicated rounded opening that's really quite enjoyable. After about 30 to 45 minutes, it then starts kind of moving into the mids. It starts to lose some of that pepper from that spice, and it starts to get a little bit earthier. Now, I wouldn't say this is a particularly earthy fragrance, but it certainly kind of does get a little bit earthier and a little bit greener as well, just a little bit. So it's kind of got like a slightly earthy greenness as it goes into the mids, and it loses some of that spice as well. And it does start to get, also the iris comes through from the mids there as well, so it does start to get progressively a little bit more kind of powdery and a bit, again, another kind of talky ball gets involved. So it's probably like half a talky ball at the start, maybe another half into the mid. So we're onto a full talky ball now, I would say. So yeah, into the mids, it basically starts to get a little bit woodier, but not kind of full on yet. The oud doesn't kind of come through just yet, but yeah, it starts to get a little bit earthier, a little bit more powdery, touch greener, and the woods start to come through. After about an hour, maybe just a little bit more, it starts kind of getting into the sort of full dry down. And that's when it gets a little bit woodier still, when the oud starts coming through. Now the oud is not skanky oud at all, it's not barnyardy, it's just a very nice sort of strong woody kind of oud. So it's not, you know, particularly smoky or anything like that. So don't let the presence of oud put you off. This is not like an oud based fragrance. And if you just, the first whiff, you probably won't pick up any oud at all. As I say, it takes a while for it to kind of come through. So don't let the oud kind of put you off. But yeah, as it goes into the base, it certainly gets a lot kind of woodier, and it still kind of maintains some of that kind of sort of powderiness as well. But it does also still kind of have a sort of pleasant warmth to it. I assume maybe from the amber that starts coming through, because I do kind of detect the amber on the dry down as well. So that kind of adds this extra element of kind of warmth. So you're left with a sort of solid, woody, slightly powdery, warm fragrance. And when I say warm, it's not like a winter fragrance. It's called Signature Pour Homme. So that kind of says it all. It is a classic signature scent that you could wear pretty much all year round. There's not really, particularly in a climate controlled environment in the summer, there's not a situation that you can wear this fragrance. So it is hella versatile. So yeah, when I say kind of warm, it's not like a winter fragrance, it's not a summer fragrance, anything like that. This is a very safe, versatile fragrance. With regard to the performance, I was initially slightly underwhelmed, but I think I was a little bit harsh, because this sample that I've got, basically the sprayer is dog shit. I get such a small amount out of the sprayer. I think that really kind of impacted, because it did last on my skin. I could smell it on my skin after 7 or 8 hours. I got a full day, and I could put my nose to my skin and I could smell it. So it does kind of last, but it did seem to lack any kind of real strong projection. I got some sort of quite good projection in the first hour, but then there wasn't much after that. But as I say, that's probably because this applies such a little amount. So I think if you had a full bottle with a proper sprayer, you could put, you know, 4, 6 sprays on, or whatever whatever the bag is. I can't really advise, because I've not got the full sprayer. And I think you would probably get some, I could imagine 1 to 2 hours of good projection. But for this, I was struggling to get like an hour, just probably because I had like piss all come out of it. So yeah, that was a bit shit. But as I say, the longevity was good. It did last on my skin all day. So what's my final verdict on this fragrance? You know what? It's nice. It's a nice fragrance. It's a really nice, pleasant fragrance that I think most people will like. Apart from my wife, obviously, she doesn't like it, but that's part of the course, isn't it? Standard. But anyway, yeah, it is a very nice fragrance, and I like it, but it just doesn't, it's probably, to be fair, it's probably just not really my bag. It's not really my kind of fragrance, because, as I say, it's got a slight element of, it's got a slightly old school vibe going on, but it is a modern fragrance. I'd say it's a modern fragrance with just a reference to the past, kind of some of the classic kind of 90s manly fragrances. So it's like that. So it's not really kind of my type of fragrance. And for that reason, it doesn't really excite me. It doesn't kind of, I think if I owned it, I just don't know if I would reach for it that much. Even though it's really versatile and you can reach for it for any situation, it doesn't excite me, so I don't think I would reach for it. I would just reach for other things. And in that regard, it is really quite expensive. Again, it's very well blended and it's very complex, so I can see where the price comes from, because there's a lot of ingredients and you can pick them out, but it does come as very well blended, and it's not linear either, so it's very well done. And there's a lot going on there, so I can see where the price kind of comes from, but I personally wouldn't pay that money for this fragrance. But you know me, I very rarely would pay that money for any fragrance. There's only a few so far that I found that I would. So yeah, this is not for me, but I can see why a lot of people would love it. And if you like some of the classic fragrances that sort of reference back to some of the, you know, yesteryears like Beau de Jour, etc., you'll probably love this. So Nigel, when you get your nose on this, I'm sure you're going to love it, mate. It's Nigel at 2 cents worth because he's desperate to get this fragrance. So yeah, I do think this is a safe bet to buy a fragrance for, like, as a gift for a more mature man. And when I say mature, I don't mean old. I just mean somebody that's kind of, you know, probably 30s and up. They've got their shit together. They're, you know, self-assured. They know what they're doing, and this is a good fragrance for that. A sort of younger guy probably wouldn't kind of get into this fragrance or wouldn't find it particularly exciting. I can appreciate it because it's really well done, but doesn't really excite me. So perhaps I'm just young at heart. I am, and after all, I am a basic bitch, as I always say. So that's my vibe. Let me know what you think to it below. Have you paid for it to get it shipped to the UK? Because it's quite expensive to get it here. But yeah, what do you think? And what sort of reactions have you got from the ladies? I say my wife doesn't like it, but I'd be curious to know if you've garnered any compliments. Thanks again for watching. I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, give it a like, I'd appreciate it. And if you haven't already done so, do hit that subscribe button. I would love you forever. Well, forever's a long time actually. So I'll probably just love you until the next video when I ask you to hit subscribe again. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next one. Take care, much love.